What's up, fam? Welcome back to the Black to Business series. This is episode 6, and I'm coming back to you guys with part 2 of our conversation from Jessica Norwood of the Runway project. She is the founder. She's just an amazing leader, an amazing entrepreneur. Her hands are involved in so many different spaces that she's adding value to, and she's definitely goals when it comes to being a business owner. So let's tap into that conversation. Go ahead and grab your popcorn, and I'll see you guys back in about 12 minutes. All right, peace. So for our viewers and our listeners, we have a lot of millennials, a lot of Generation X, who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They have these big dreams and ideas, but they don't know how to take the first steps. They don't know how to take the elementary steps. For someone who has, an idea to start a business, where should they look first? What's the one resource that they should be looking to receive and acquire?
There is not one way to start a business. That's the first thing. I think thinking that it's just prescriptive is just going to give you more and more headaches, because there's a million, and I tell people all the time, you want to make $100,000, there's 100,000 different ways to do it. And it's true. There's 100,000 different ways to make $100,000. So not focusing on that part. What you need, though, is I think you need to have good guidance. Most important, good guidance. So finding a program that you can join, that program can be an accelerator or incubator program. I like those kinds of programs if they're going to give you a speedy and thoughtful curriculum. So I don't think it should take a long time. Entrepreneurship is about testing and trying out as well. So I think you want to do both, but you want to have good guidance. You might get good guidance through peer networks. It might be that we're all doing this and we're all passing along information. Or you might get good guidance from a mentor of sorts, someone who has been there, done that, either in your field or just has good business acumen. Just sort of you'll notice some of those folks who just sort of seem to have it. They just have a good understanding about here's what it takes for a business to work. And I think the three things that I think about, although I'm not the chief lender at our shop, so they think about other questions than I think about. But I always think about, what problem does it solve? What are you doing in the world that is making some sort of difference? I think business is leaving this sort of place where it has to describe some value. It has to give some value. So what are you solving? What are you doing? What's different? What are you offering to the marketplace that is valuable and different, right? What problem are you solving? Secondly, how does it make you a better person? If you can't figure out how it is enabling you to take care of your responsibilities, it's enabling you to show up for your family, for your friends, it's making you a better person because you're getting out your purpose in the world. If it feels like that, then it's just more work, and you don't want to do more work. There's lots of work to do. Do the thing that is lining up with your purpose and it's solving a problem. And then finally, how does it make money? Right? These are the three questions. Finally, how does it make money? And you need to be able to say how it makes money relatively easily. Making money should not be the most complex thing of all times. I think the complexity is partially where we get the pain and the hurt and the violence inside of it. Because if you're in right relationship to something, it shouldn't be too complex to explain what right relationship is. Right, how to make money. This is $1 million question, right? How to make money. So Runway Project started off really looking at closing this friends and family gap issue. And so part of the challenge is that we look at this wealth gap, and at the time when we started, the wealth gap was $11,000 for African Americans compared to whites, which was at $142,000. And these are things that you have, these are assets, things that you can liquidate. These are savings, it's your equity in your home, it's your 401, it's all of these different pieces that you have. And it's also equity in your business. So part of if you climb into that number a little bit more, what you start to notice is that some folks wealth is really pushed over because of the equity of their business, not just their home. And we've looked at that, not just education. African Americans have higher education. So, and that sort of median data set, like if you look at that data set and you start to compare it. And so I started to wonder, I was like, well, when people tell you to start a business and they tell you to borrow money from your friends and family, how are you gonna borrow money from your friends and family if everybody got $11,000? Right. It's like, I think that's a really good question. Yes. And everybody was just like, that is a good question. How do we solve that? And I was like, oh, you want me to solve it? Wait, I was just supposed to be asking the questions. I didn't really solve it. And so there was a really lovely person who was at this meeting where I posed this question, who worked with Self-Help Credit Union, who said to me, what you want to do? And I was like, I don't really know. Like, how would you approach it? And we started talking about this idea of using a certificate of deposit, something that was really familiar to everybody and was backed by by the Federal Reserve, and so it had that insurance component to it, and it had liquidity, meaning that you could get after the 5 years or whatever term of that CD, you could get that money back, and it made a little bit of money. So we thought, well, let's try to use something like that. And so we did, and we set out to make patient friends and family loans, the kind of loans that you ought to be getting from your friends and family. But because of this wealth gap, you're just not able to ever get. And so these loans are somewhere $50,000 and less. For this sort of friends and family loan. It doesn't require you have collateral. It doesn't require that you go through these like crazy amounts of having this credit score and these kinds of things. We check those things, soft check and put it down, but it's not a determining factor in that way. And it really is about the sort of core things. How does it make money? How are you a better person? How is it enhancing the community? What problem is it really solving here? And so we really want to focus on that. And I like to call that kind of money the first money that you get in when you're just a little bit past the idea and you've got a year under your belt and you're going and you're trying to figure, this is I believe in you money. This is the money that you should get when somebody just looks at you and says, I find you valuable. I find what your contribution is to our community worthwhile. And I'd like to see you work this out. And you may not make it work on this first venture. It may be the second iteration. We don't want people to lose any money, but we also want people to have the chance to try. And in this current system and sort of way it plays out, that possibility just isn't there. It's there for folks who have the money to take it, but it's not there for all of us. And that means that this call for innovation is really a very vacant call because it doesn't really include everybody who's able to take hold of that and make that possible. And so we wanted to change that. So we had a lot of testing to do ourselves. I would say for any business, you're going to have to get used to being nimble enough to pivot when it's time to pivot. The market changes and your ability to change with it is going to matter. But yeah, so Runway helps make it possible for incredible entrepreneurs, particularly African American entrepreneurs, to be able to get the early money, to get that idea going, to get some cash into the business, to use that for operations so that they can grow their cash flow of their business, so they can get more customers, so they can get, so they can really get out there. And what we often see is a lot of entrepreneurs who come to us have been in business for a little bit of time, but they've had to do what we've all had to do, take a little cash from home and put it here and take a little bit from here and put it here. And they never really get to grow at a rate that's actually, some fields it's okay to do it this way. But by and large, if you really want to get in the marketplace, you're running up against somebody else who's come out and maybe their grandmother or somebody said, oh, I love this idea. Here's $10,000, and they're able to go. And that little $10,000, they get the website, they get the business cards, they go to the first conference that they're going to go to and make connections and sell their, all these little things. They get a little inventory, these little things that they're able to do that while you're over here trying to put in $1,000 this month, month and 1,000 this month. You just don't have it, that same little tranche of money. And even if you're able to put in 10,000 for that whole year, having it at one time is different than having it every single month, or drips and drips and drips of it, or what have you. Sometimes you need it. For people who have seasonal businesses, holiday businesses, and things like that, they need an upfront part of cash to be able to do those businesses. And so this kind of money supports those kinds of extensions and efforts and strategies. And hopefully we do it with a lot of love and a lot of integrity and a lot of community wrapped around it. Yeah.
I almost said amen.
You can say amen.
Okay,
Amen.
With all the success that you've acquired, you're always pushing the bar.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years, and how do you go about, making those goals happen? You've already been so successful.
I appreciate you saying that. I don't feel like I've solved it yet. So I'm pushing myself towards, I don't want to have another Black business ever wonder how they're going to get this early amount of money. I want that to be that's a problem that should not be a problem. It doesn't have to exist. And for me, success would be the eradication of that issue, that everybody knows you can come to Runway if you need that help. So I see the next 5 years of growing that, strengthening that, making that as true as possible. In every sort of facet that we talked about, from what it means personally, how do you make the money, how are you changing as a person, and how is that business making this community better? Those are the kind of sort of levels of questions that I'm going to keep pushing against, and keep making sure that our internal efforts, my personal movement in the world, and the companies that we are so fortunate to work with, all are able to sort of move inside of those questions and have answers for them, and to be in dialogue around it. And I think, any investors, that's the place where we really ought to be engaging at this point. So I would say, yeah, for next 5 years, doing what we're doing better, badder, bossier.
Jessica, thank you so much for providing actionable steps. Like, this isn't filler information. These aren't fun facts. These are specific steps that we can take to go to the next level, and I'm extremely grateful for it. Now, I have 2 points, but one has multiple parts. And there were many more points, but I want to make sure that I'm just providing quality to the specific points that really stood out. So the first is that entrepreneurship is about testing and trying out different things. And one thing that Jessica really mentioned is having great guidance. This is something that Chef Chu also talked about, and Chef Mimi. So it's kind of a trend that's going on. Making sure that you have great advisors goes a long way in your business. The 3 steps that Jessica shared with us on doing that is, first, understanding what problem you're solving, because that's how you determine what value you can add. The next point is that you need to understand how what you're doing makes you a better person. Because if it's not making you a better person, then it's just a job. And we all understand that if it's just a job to you, and you don't wake up desiring to do it, it's not what's fueling your fire to go out there and kill it, it's going to get old after a while, and your heart isn't going to be in it, and that's going to be reflected in your work. So the last point is simply, how does what you do make money? And Jessica made a comment that really struck a chord with me. She said it shouldn't be hard to explain how your business makes money. It should be very simple. So keep that in mind. And then our final point, guys, is that you need to be nimble enough to pivot. And I mean, that speaks volumes. I mean, if you're heavy-footed, as in being stubborn, and you're just trying to force something to work and it's not working, but you don't want to move, that's a red flag. And the last thing that she left us with is that we want to be better, badder, and bossier. And I'm definitely going to take that to heart as well. Again, guys, I feel like each episode they get better while maintaining the same level of quality. I'm really grateful for every person who's been on this series so far, because I'm learning just as much as you guys are learning. I'm not sure if I made that clear or not in the beginning, but This is definitely something that I'm appreciative for. And I hope that you guys are valuing it too. So if you do value this information, please share it with all of your friends and family. Send them to the channel, send them to Facebook, send them to Instagram. Just let them know where they can access this at. And that's really all I have. So until next time, guys, keep living your blessed life. Get your popcorn ready for the next episode that drops tomorrow at 2:30. And I look forward to seeing you guys then. Peace.